You saw the title. 4K, less than $200 US. What can you actually get? It's the shootout between the Nitro VG1 from ACER, 27-inch 4K, and the MSI Pro MP273U, labeled as a business and productivity monitor. The MSI says that it's IPS on the box. The ACER says that it's IPS on the box. What kind of a crazy world have we gone to where the IPS monitors are the budget monitors? Let's dive in. I'd also adjust the camera field of view so it's a little wider angle. The wide angle! Alright, listen, for less than $200, I'm not expecting much, but the ACER monitor has a lot more packing. But do you want to pay more for and get more monitor, or get less packing and more monitor? So spoiler alert, I picked up both of these at Micro Center with my own money. For no other reason other than I needed some more 4K monitors. And 4K 60 was fine, although we'll try overclocking. Alrighty, so the MSI, you got a power brick. You got an HDMI cable. Got a manual with, looks like a cable retention bracket. Yeah, wow, the monitor stand is made of literal plastic. Very eco-friendly, biodegradable packing. Very little plastic. 75mm VESA holes. It's a very lightweight monitor because it has an external power brick. It appears as though the monitor just snaps together. Like that's your stand. It has a somewhat unsatisfying push-to-release mechanism for actually mounting it, but it's a tilt-adjustable stand. It has two HDMI inputs and a DisplayPort input, and then, of course, the connector for the power brick. But it only includes an HDMI cable, so if you wanted to use DisplayPort, you got to get a cable. All right, let's unpack our ACER. The ACER box is a bit heavier. The handles on the side are a trap. If they're pushed in, it won't let go. Got a much thicker installation manual. Heavy styrofoam, and the monitor is significantly heavier. The stand on the ACER appears to be made out of aluminum, plastic-clad aluminum. So it's a little bit more structurally sound. Similar mounting mechanism where it goes into the display though. Comes with a power cord and an HDMI cord. Again, probably a cost-saving measure that there's no DisplayPort cord, even though it is DisplayPort capable. The mounting mechanism for this, even though I said it, it's pretty similar, it was a little more satisfying to connect. The aesthetic of this monitor is also a little different. Interestingly, getting both of these monitors hooked up right off the bat, the MSI supports 30 and 60 Hz refresh on the DisplayPort input, whereas there's quite a bit more refresh options on the ACER side. That suggests that the ACER side might be a little bit more compatible with video game consoles or other things that you might plug in other than a computer, because it's advertising support for multiple refresh rates beyond just 30 and 60 Hertz. 23 Hertz, for example, 23.967, which is funky. Side by side, it's pretty easy to notice the visual and the aesthetic differences. There's kind of a brushed finish on the ACER, whereas the MSI has more of like a matte plastic. Neither one of these really pick up fingerprints. They're both made for long haul, long sort of usage. The ACER has quite a bit more cooling vents on the back. It's a thicker bezel, heavier monitor, as I mentioned before. It's got a 4-way hat switch control for the on-screen displays as well as rear buttons. The MSI controls are simplified. There's just a few buttons at the bottom edge of the display. Not really anything super special. There's this very, very dark green secondary tone in the plastic of the ACER monitor. It is a nice sort of aesthetic feature. You get the feeling that ACER sort of recycled some of the stuff that they were doing for their gaming displays. And this is ACER Nitro, which is usually a gaming brand. I feel like they've maybe diluted things a little bit here because Nitro usually is sort of a gaming thing, but 4K and only 60 hertz as a gaming, like even just a hint of a gaming monitor? No, I don't think so. And there's no hint of gaming anything on the box or any of the marketing materials or anything like that. It's literally just the aesthetic and the word Nitro when the on-screen display pops up. Now, I was really expecting the HDMI and advanced HDMI features like HDMI CEC and DDI, command and control. Basically, you can control the monitor through the display cable to be a differentiating factor between these two monitors, but no. The on-screen display is full of features, chock full of features on these inexpensive monitors that is mostly bug-free on both of them. It's great. They both come in eco mode out of the box. You want to turn that off because it makes the display a lot brighter and work better, and it improves the picture quality and just a million other things. It's just like, oh, it'll use less power. Great. I don't care. I'd like it to work better at a cost of slightly increased power. So turn off eco mode, and all of my tests and everything else like that was done with eco mode off because that would skew the results. They also support overdrive, so you can overclock the response time of the monitor because they are IPS type panels. You can see, like, if you're off angles and you're looking into the edge of the display, you can kind of see a little bit of a shadow thing because it is an IPS type display. But IPS has really good 178 degree viewing angles otherwise. And you can see how they did the bezel on these displays. It looks like it's a really tiny bezel, but then you get the display on, and it's like, wait a minute, the bezel's a little bigger than it actually looks like. That's okay. Comparable layout. It's very almost, are these actually an identical panel, and you couldn't make up your mind as to which dressing and electronics you wanted for the panel? Yeah, basically. They both support, through the on-screen display, having a center reticle added to the display. That's one of the first things that showed up when we were importing those insanely inexpensive Korean monitors. And this is also like kind of a history thing on this channel. One of the first videos that I ever did, I was not really compelled to do videos at all, but I bought a Samsung UD28590D. And because it had been well reviewed in websites and in video reviews. It's like, oh, this is a really nice, affordable 4K monitor. That was lies. It was terrible. It was absolute trash. It was the worst monitor ever, and it was awful. But these cost less than half that monitor. Here we are a decade later. These cost less than half of that monitor, and I'm slightly impressed that these cost as little as they do. I mean, granted, if you spent $100 more, you're going to get way more than $100 more monitor. Like, you're not getting a miracle here, but the fact that these monitors are as good as they are, as inexpensive as they are, is something to behold. Which is not any kind of qualification or caveat I had when I was looking at that Samsung UD28590D. OLED and light emitting technologies are definitely the future. Not just OLED, but things like that. And OLED right now, OLED, there are some downsides in terms of like longevity and just little weird quirks that they have. But in terms of display quality and response time and everything else, that is amazing. So this panel technology is still going to be with us for a long time because they can apparently make these monitors at less than $200 each and make a profit. And they haven't cut it so far to the bone that the monitor is, sort of stops being functional. I would have liked to have seen a faster, better response time and that sort of thing, but 60 hertz, I can't really complain too much. It works well. Now, in terms of response time, actually measured response time using OSRTT, the monitors are very, very similar. Sometimes the MSI monitor is a little better. Sometimes the ACER monitor is a little better. It just depends on which part of the test you want to sort of micro-analyze. Overall, though, the monitors are basically the same, I would say, just in terms of actually playing with it, playing games on it, doing all that kind of stuff. The MSI, interestingly, FreeSync is off by default, and that seems to improve its response time just a little bit. But if you turn on FreeSync, the response time gets a little bit worse. So depending on which parameter you want, you can make the monitor a little better or a little worse playing with the on-screen display settings. Again, eco mode off for these tests because eco mode being on usually will mess with things. Color accuracy and everything like that. Both of these monitors, they're not calibrated out of the box but they did do surprisingly well with sRGB and Adobe Gamma testing. I was kind of surprised that they worked as well as they did, again, given the price point and everything else. You can tell that MSI and ACER have definitely taken their enterprise features and stuffed them into these monitors. They're getting a lot of mileage out of that firmware and the on-screen display. FreeSync on, once that's toggled on in the MSI, so we can do like-for-like testing between the MSI and the ACER, again, you get a pretty similar result. The MSI does edge the ACER out in a couple of spots, and the OSD seems like it's a little bit more well put together on the MSI, but the MSI button situation is worse than ACER's hat switch button. It's a lot easier to use the on-screen display on the ACER than it is the MSI, even though the MSI has more features. The MSI also has more aim point controls. You can pick white or red, and you've got a bunch of selections. You have fewer selections on the ACER side of things if you need an on-screen, game reticle. But, who cares? I'm still getting over my food poisoning, so I've lost my voice. You can probably hear that a little bit. But I thought this was a lot of fun because it's like, dang it, I need some 4K monitors here at the office. And I was surprised. I was really expecting okay, I'll probably take one of these back and get another one of the one that I like. But I actually like both of these, depending on what it is that you're trying to do. 75mm VESA mount, 100mm VESA mount. It's pretty common. Almost all my monitor arms have both 75 and 100mm holes, so that's not a problem. I don't really like that the MSI has an external power brick versus the built-in power brick of the ACER. But again, you got to look pretty hard to find really significant differences between these two displays. The MSI has a more subdued aesthetic. The ACER has a more gamer aesthetic. I'm on the fence. What do you think? Engagement challenge. Let me know. Let's hang out in the forums and chat some more. I'm one of this level 1. This has been a quick look at the MSI and the ACER gaming monitor. I'm surprised that it's basically a tie. It's a push. I can't really recommend one or the other unless you have specific things you need, like a built-in power brick, or you're planning to use monitor arms, or other factors that would cause me to consider one or the other. I was expecting one or the other to have significantly better input latency, but depending on how you fiddle with the on-screen display, you can get them to come out about the same. And the panels, the physical hardware themselves, the actual panels, well, what did you expect? All right, I'm one of those level 1. I'm signing out. You can find me in the level 1 forums.